All right, it's Sunday and it's mukbang time.
This is a world.
This is a world premiere.
This is a world.
So, things have been pretty cool here at Altspace for the last couple of days. Kearney's been here, and you guys have already seen a couple of videos featuring him. He's here helping set up a garden at Altspace, an indoor garden actually. Today, we went and got some supplies. He actually made a little tabletop where the plants are going to sit under the grow lights, and we set up some grow lights, and so we'll get some footage of the grow lights on the table and I don't know what you call them, the seeds when they go in the dirt that are gestating. So there's some seeds that are gestating right now, so you'll get caught up on all of that stuff. So I've been reading. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into that yet. I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about what I'm reading, which is the book by Charles Patterson that Leopard Prince had suggested, and I'm into the second chapter now, and I'm really just fascinated by the book, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about that later on. But just let's keep it light for a second. So last week, Chris, my husband, was going to be visiting his sister not far. He's actually in Indianapolis, so he's probably, about 4 hours away, which is closer than normal. Normally he's, 12 hours away in Brooklyn. But I'm going there next week, so we figured it wasn't really worthwhile. There was a tiny possibility that I was going to be going to pick up Jack. So he was going to fly with Jack and then go off somewhere with his sister. And I was going to go and have Jack with me. But it turned out that was a little bit of a hassle. I don't want to say I don't miss my husband. That would be terrible, but we've had these conversations, so you know that those things are always complicated, right? But I do, without fail, miss my dog. I miss my dog. And I know that there's been some stuff about pets. And I'm not sure who's starting the conversation, but I'm definitely willing to chime in about just pets and, this world in general. This world was made for us, and it's a hot mess. This world was made for us, and it's a hot mess. And here we are having to live in it. And the people who were responsible for, setting the standards, the people who have been holding the power, have not been doing a very good job. And we agree with that. I think most people agree with that. I think most people agree that, and I don't know, you guys can, please chime in and shut me down. If I'm lying right now, if I don't know what I'm talking about right now, please shut me down. But my sense is that most people agree that we're in a little bit of a chaotic moment here, especially in terms of, the fate of the climate, especially in terms of the climate. And with that said, it is clear that we need a change in management. We need a management change. I'm a non-violent person. My sense is there's going to need to be some struggle before that management shift can happen. I don't know that it necessarily has to be violent struggle, but it definitely has to be a mass movement towards some kind of shift, sometimes some type of shift. Because the direction that we're moving in right now, my sense is that most people feel like there's problems. The reasons for those problems may shift from person to person, but I don't think that we are in a situation where we feel like we got people feeling like, everything is hunky-dory, let's just just keep things exactly the way they are. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. That said, in this world that we live in, that was constructed for us, and I'm not talking about the earth, I'm talking about the world, the society that we live within, there's not a lot of room for animals. Chances are, if you're an animal of any kind, you are seeing your natural habitat vanish at alarming rates. You have animals that should be living in the wilds, but, I was having a conversation last night with Kearney, and, if you look at the map of the world and see how much of that is wild, where animals can roam and be free and make a way for themselves. Ain't much of that. So with that said, what's to be done with, for, about animals, the non-human animals? Human animals are another subject, but the non-human animals, what's to be done about them? So, the day that Christmas is celebrated, and it's a day that I have often celebrated myself in the past, I was at dinner at my neighbor's house, and we heard a loud barking from outside. We thought it was someone who was outside having some trouble with their pet. It went on for quite some time. When we went out to investigate, there we saw a dog tied to the fence outside of the house. It was the day when many celebrate Christmas. So chances of some authority figure showing up who could do something with this animal other than shoot it, I wasn't going to call the police on this dog, were very slim. I happen to have a friend who does animal rescue. I called this friend, privilege, called this friend. The friend came over, helped us figure out how to get the dog calm, brought a cage for the dog to go in. We weren't sure if the dog would bite or what have you, but the dog did not go immediately into the cage. The dog, in fact, it just came into the house off the street. It was very, very upset. People were feeding the dog. People were feeding the dog animal products. The dog calmed down. My friend, who does animal rescue, looked at the tags on the dog, made some calls, and was able to figure out the dog's name, when the dog had their shots, was able to get a phone number who to call, even though they don't normally give that information out, privilege. And, we figured out some stuff about the dog. The dog's name was JC, which were people who are Christian out there, or at least people who know Jesus Christ Superstar, will find very on the nose to have a dog who was found tied outside of your house on Christmas Day named JC. Anyhow, my friend said if we took the dog in, she would find someone to adopt the dog. If we just, housed the dog for, a couple days till she could find someone else. and then we have this sentient being in, the place we call home with us, doing what most sentient beings do. And that's, seek affection, want attention, please, So, here there was this animal. And after 3 days, we adopted the dog. We adopted the dog through no formal process. It did mean going and having the dog checked out and investing some time and resources, privilege, in the care of this animal. But now I find myself with a pet who, as far as I'm concerned, has every right to live. And if that dog had been left to his own devices in the streets, chances are, he wouldn't have survived. He's my dog. I know him. He has no street skills. He has no game for living in the streets. So he would have died. And so now I have a pet. Would it have been more or less vegan of me to just leave the dog to his own devices and let him figure it out and either survive or not survive? In a world that he didn't create, a world that he did not choose, a world where there are no resources, no natural resources available for his survival. That makes me not vegan? You guys know how I feel about that anyway. I mean, I'm gonna put it this way. I'm not gonna let you claim my identity. If I want to be vegan, I'm gonna be vegan. Honestly. If I want to be vegan, I'm going to be vegan. And if I'm ignorant and I don't know what vegan means and I want to call myself vegan, I'm going to call myself vegan. I get to call myself what I want to call myself. It's one of the few things that we can do is label ourselves. But the question is it in keeping with the principles of veganism to, offer a home to an animal who otherwise would not be able to fend for itself? I don't know about anybody else. We could talk about pets in general, but I don't know any pets in general. I know pets in specific. I know pets in reality. I know Jack, the dog that lives with me, and I call him, sometimes I slip it up and I call him my dog, but that's not my dog. I didn't pick that dog. That dog came into my world and I said, okay. I said, okay. So that dog is its own being. And I kind of live that way. I let him kind of do his thing. I try to let him do his thing. I offer food. I do walks. I try to be caring and let the dog, be within safety, within reason. Many of my things have been given to the dog because, that's just the way it is. They're things. That's a sentient being with needs and things that have to be expressed and feelings that have to be expressed. And so if it means a pillow gets torn up because my dog is expressing its feelings, what else is he going to do? If he was in the wild, he'd be doing that to another animal, perhaps. But there is no wild. So that's what I have to say about pets. So Ethan, continuing with the series, Ethan is going to be coming by a little bit later. Kearney is here. So we're going to have a vegan meal, probably a raw vegan meal, although, I'm not insisting on, anyone being raw just because they're in the space. Although I tend to make some pretty delicious raw vegan dishes. So it just seems that people just kind of eat what I eat because it's kind of tasty. And I have a slammin' raw sauce, which I've made, and the recipe is already on YouTube. I'm not going to do that recipe again. In fact, I've done that recipe twice. I did that recipe with some dried ingredients and with oil, and then I turned around and did a version of it with no oil, where it was mostly fresh ingredients like fresh oregano and stuff like that. So you got to go back in time and find the recipes that I did during my 2012 60-day raw food challenge. And if you haven't looked at some of my older videos, it's a trip. It is a trip down memory lane. I look at them and I'm like, who is that person? That said, I think Jesse Jumpkin asked me about being raw, has been asking me questions about being raw, and do I find it difficult to be raw? And I don't, especially not in the summertime. I mean, who wants to be over a plate of hot food, hot food that tastes good before you heat it up? So in the summertime, it is definitely not an issue to be raw. I talked about, you guys know that I've, on a couple of occasions, been at a restaurant and I could have the salad, or I could have like roasted chickpeas. And so I had this roasted chickpeas at one point last night. I was actually sitting across the table with Kearney, and we were at a Mediterranean place, and I had a Mediterranean spinach salad that was okay. But he'd ordered this hummus, and I was looking at that hummus, and the hummus looked good. And so I, he took his knife and he put like a little bit of the hummus so I could just have a little of the flavor of the hummus. And my thinking is it's healthy and it's something that my body is craving. I'm going to call that like a real craving because, hummus is okay, but it's not crack, right? So if I'm craving legumes, if I'm craving grains, I consider that's like, I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to listen to that because for some reason I'm not getting enough of something, and so I'm craving that. As far as, all the other things, cooked vegetables, what? There's cooked vegetables, there's cooked fruits, what? They're great, they're all great raw. So being raw is not difficult, especially, as I said before, especially in the summertime. It's a little noisy, sorry. So, what else? Transition. So, you guys are gonna. I've been watching Vegan Cheetah. Since his channel came back, I feel like things have calmed down a bit. I love people. And I love behavior, and I love diversity. And the drama, no, I'm not a fan of the drama, but I love the struggle. And the thing that I love, I think most about Charlie is when he struggles. I think I love that about, all of the YouTubers that I follow, is that they're willing to struggle, to just sit there and struggle with us watching, appealing to us, asking us questions. And there was a brief period between Charlie being the Vegan Cheetah that was pretty hostile, had said some pretty offensive things to me I would never have watched. Went through a huge transition, started basically kind of not embracing intersectionality. First of all, let's talk a little bit about intersectionality and the issue that some people have with the idea of intersectionality, the idea of social justice, the idea of structural oppression. And I'm not going to call out any names. I'll call out names for positive things, but I'm not going to call out names for negative things. But you know who you are when you were on my channel being like incredulous as you started your comment by repeating words like intersectionality, structural oppression, structural racism, with like a kind of a disbelief. And it only makes it look like you need to broaden your vocabulary. If you don't know what intersectionality is, and if you don't understand the concept of intersectionality, you need to go and broaden your vocabulary. It's not about, because the idea that the world operates holistically in a way that's interconnected. We know that life is an interconnected web. We know that it is. So as we deal with issues in our lives, we have to deal with them as if they were part of an interconnected web. So intersectionality is really just the norm. There's nothing special about intersectionality. What is abnormal is when we single issue look at life and try to compartmentalize and think that we can, simply remove this infected part without looking at, say, the diet, right? And what's interesting is that I was looking at Forks Over Knives. I've seen Forks Over Knives 4 times in the last week. And I find it just very, very interesting, especially after the whole Jeff Nelson thing. And it was one of the Jeff Nelson kind of friends who questioned like the idea of intersectionality, I believe. Anyway, all that said, they speak so clearly about the systems of nutrients that form health, and that you couldn't just look at protein. You had to look at everything together. So that understanding is well accepted within factions of the vegan community, who then turn around and want to question the idea of intersectional thinking about the life in other ways other than how we like our diets. That to me sounds like you've specialized too long. You've specialized too long, and now you're only comfortable with one topic. And when you go off topic, it leaves you feeling like you're losing your power, you're losing your privilege, you're losing your status. And so the only way that you can respond to that is to negate what the other person is saying. Which, let me take it really quickly back and finish up my thought about the Vegan Cheetah. There's a version of Charlie and what he's been doing now on the Vegan Cheetah, like the mothership Vegan Cheetah channel, as he's gone back to some of that sort of intersectional thinking and struggling on camera, and it's beautiful. And I'm like, Charlie, just keep going and do your other thing, but just watching you grow and become politicized is an amazing thing. And I feel like that's something, because I'm watching creativity, I'm watching growth. And to me, growth is life. And things that are the opposite of creativity, I tend to want to move away from. And sometimes, I feel like Vegan Cheetah can go either way. Can go either way. Not to be binary in my thinking about that. Excuse me, y'all. Anyway. So that said, let's see. I've gone through this entire mukbang, and I haven't mentioned race. And I know y'all thinking something is wrong with me, but I think the heavy part of this particular mukbang is I'm going to talk to you a little bit, and I highly recommend people read Eternal Treblinka by Charles Patterson. Because the book so clearly ties together the development of the relationship between humans and animals, and how that relationship has been replicated over and over again throughout time. I've said in other videos that it seems that animal oppression has given birth to other forms of oppression. But interestingly, and this is the point that's being made in the book right now, is that in order to oppress human animals, there is a process of dehumanization that involves likening them to animals. And just think of how pervasive that is, bitch. Snake. Dog. Jackass. How often we jump to dehumanizing the person and moving them into the status of animals, which in our society is lowering their status, as unjust as that might be. To move someone into the realm of animal is to lower their status. So that happened to me recently. Someone in a comment said that I was a poor excuse for a human being. I wasn't offended. I was more surprised that the person didn't realize how offensive they were being to all the other earthlings. That somehow being not like a human being is the worst possible thing that person could imagine for me. So, I'm finding the book fascinating. And it's one I highly recommend. I hate when I get to the bottom and I have so much more to say to you. But I have to be fair to myself. And Kearney's in the house right now, and I don't know what he's up to. So, I'm going to leave it at this. That's it for this video. Like it if you like it. Share, comment, subscribe. This is Reg signing off. Love yourself. Peace.
And I love myself.